This topic is very close to my heart, and I have written in length about it. When all this started, way back in 2004 itself, immediately after the Congress government came back in power, uh, in within a couple of years, a range of soft bombs, or I would say low intensity bombs, started blasting across India one by one, uh, with a purpose. And there was later we came to know that there was a very, very fine politician jihadi nexus behind it. Uh, it was perpetrated by none other than the central government itself through its top ministers. And later, scores of people, scores of scholars have written about it. The recent book of Mr. R.V.S. Mani, who was into IB, he has written about saffron terror. It has a book called Hindu Terror, and he has explained all those modus operandi in detail. What used to happen in the Home Ministry, how the IB, NIA, and CBI were misused with a defined political purpose. So here, we'll keep this short. We'll go, and I would try to explain my viewers how it was propagated by explaining a few of very famous bomb blasts that happened after 2004. So if we recall, there are some Malegaon blast in Maharashtra, the Makkah Masjid bombing in Hyderabad. Samjhauta Express blast was very well taken by the media in both in the terms of building a narrative behind saffron terror, and also kept people excited about what's happening about Hindu terror. And ultimately, the 26 by 11 was the culmination of it. So let's go first about the Malegaon blast in 2006. This blast particularly happened in Maharashtra, and that time the Home Minister was, if I recall well, was Shivraj Patil. And immediately after the blast, Dr. Singh, our ex-Prime Minister, gave some very vague statements, very conspirational statements, saying that despite the police, Maharashtra police, said that the explosive were a cocktail of RDX and ammonium nitrate, that particular combination was used specifically by the Islamist terror groups. And the Mumbai police had claimed that they have identified the perpetrators as well. They arrested one Nurul Huda of SIMI, that is Student Islamic Militant Group, which was operational those days. But Dr. Singh came on screen in front of media and said that it will be inappropriate for us to rule out anything or rule in anything, giving a vague statement that, it's not sure that Islamists are behind it. But alas, sadly for their plan, the ATS has already prima facie ruled out any hands of any Hindu group. So that went into the basket. Then in 2007, scores of bomb blasts happened. The most important of them was the Samjhauta Express blast. This particular incidents we have to take up in detail, because the entire conspiracy behind this particular blast came out in public domain, and this explains the entire modus operandi. Samjhauta Express, as we know, was started by Vajpayee ji, and it was a good gesture between, or it was a symbol of developing India-Pakistan relationship. So, particularly, this train was picked up, and the blast happened in early 2007 in February. First, we'll go back and look at the initial investigation. Initial investigation, SIMI immediately claimed responsibility. The probe initial pointed out at SIMI and Lashkar-e-Toiba. One guy, Safdar Nagori, he was arrested and his narco test was conducted. In his narco test, he clearly confessed the role of SIMI and also the some of the terrorists, jihadis who came from Pakistan. And that was his narco test confessions. Nagori also confessed about his brother. I forget his name. I think some Kamaruddin, his brother was there. And one Tehsam Nasir. He was from, both of them were from SIMI. So the investigation was going in a line through the Maharashtra police, but the case was handed over by the Home Ministry to Maharashtra ATS, that is Maharashtra Anti-Terror Squad. They surprisingly came out with a statement saying that some Colonel Purohit, an army officer, is suspected. Now, if in India, if an army officer is made accused of a bomb blast, then it became like it was a crazy incident. And the media hype was there. Media always hand in glove with the Congress government supported this narrative, and Colonel Purohit was made the main accused. As we see, immediately Pakistan picked up the issue. They named Colonel Purohit. They said that there is an involvement of some Hindu groups in the blast. Then the ATS brought Colonel Purohit. They arrested Colonel Purohit and brought him to the court, and they made a statement that Colonel Purohit was behind supplying the RDX for this blast. Naturally, if you are aware about some media channels, media portals like the Karavan or the Tahalka, they grabbed it and they run this story. I mean, on a regular feature that Colonel Purohit, one organization he was said to be associated with, Abhinav Bharat, that Abhinav Bharat is behind this bomb blast. Colonel Purohit came back and he made a statement in front of the court that he was doing his job. He did infiltrated Abhinav Bharat, and his job was to mingle with the terrorists. And his job was to mingle with these organizations to bring out the report to, I mean, that what's happening in India. I'll come back on Colonel Purohit separately, why he was targeted. But even at that time, and all this to remind you, at this point in time, Shivraj Patil was replaced by P. Chidambaram. And when all this conspiracy and this investigating agencies coming into picture and taking the narrative or shifting the blame started happening. And that was in 2007 end. If I remember, around October, November, this shift of ministry happened. And P. Chidambaram took it on himself. It was his, I mean, we have written in detail, we have read in detail that how he misused both the Home Ministry, he made IB and NIA fight with each other, how ATS was misused. Anyway, So under P. Chidambaram, this entire narrative was built through the investigating agency. Surprisingly, the Army Court of Inquiry, they did their own inquiry. Uh, Around 60 witnesses testified. They gathered that he was gathering intelligence and he was infiltrating extremists. And Army Court of Inquiry gave him a clean sheet, but nothing doing. That was ignored. In the same time, another report came. This report came in the magazine Tahalka that some Swami Asimanand has made a confession that RSS people were behind this Samjhauta bomb blast. Of course, the havoc created, and Congress, through its mouthpieces, to Digvijay Singh, Sushil Kumar Shinde, or all these folks, the natural suspects, they started talking about RSS being a terror organization, RSS is behind this, despite Simi particularly claiming the responsibility of the blast. When the blast happened, at that time, NSG did the initial study of the blast, and they said that no RDX was used. But the narrative was built that RDX was used and RDX was supplied by Colonel Purohit. Even Shivraj Patil then, when he was the Home Minister, immediately after the blast had said that no RDX was used and new type of explosive was used. All these revelations were kept aside, and the saffron terror narrative was built. Finally, in 2011 or 12, Maharashtra ATS also had to officially backtrack that Colonel Purohit had supplied any RDs or anything behind this. But till then, the narrative was already built and it was spread through the media. What is more shocking about this particular blast that the US agencies did their own investigation. And there is a resolution of United Nations Security Council that and that is still there on UN site. If anyone wants to go, the link they can get through my article, which was published on Mindmakers. There are links, and these resolutions still exist on the UN Security Council site. That some Arif Kasmani was from Lashkar-e-Toiba, who worked to facilitate this blast in Samjhauta Express. UN and US both sanctioned against Lashkar-e-Toiba and Kasmani. After their sanction, Pakistan Interior Minister Rahman Malik, he confessed, he admitted that Pakistani terrorists were involved. But he made a rider also that actually these terrorists were hired by Colonel Purohit himself. So naturally, another US investigative journalist, Sebastian Rotella, he published a very detailed investigative report of this blast, and he made it public that David Coleman Headley, along with Arif Kasmani, were the main perpetrators and were behind the Samjhauta blast. But our own intelligence agencies, they were pursuing this case entirely on a different line. I don't have to say anything, but naturally, the question arises that why these evidences were not pursued? Why did our investigating agencies ignore these evidences? Why NIA did not name Arif Kasmani as one of the accused? Why they did not? How can they ignore United Nations Security Council or US Treasury Department's report, which accused Kasmani as accused, and they just ignored? Why They never asked for deportation of Kasmani from Pakistan. None of these steps were taken. Everything was ignored. All these whys have only one answer. That NIA was given a job to shift the blame from the Islamists, from the Islamist terrorists, to Hindu groups. And I would say they were very successful in building this narrative. But that did not end there. The further blasts happened in 2007 itself. Uh, there was one blast that happened in Makkah Masjid, Hyderabad. Again in 2007 itself. Similar line, no RDX was used, cyclotol was used. The ID that blasted and that was studied, and it was clear by the investigating agencies. The SIT of Hyderabad arrested a couple of jihadi terrorists. One was some Amjad Abdul Khaja of Lashkar-e-Toiba, and then another was Shahid Bilal. Shahid Bilal belonged to an organization called I always forget these names. Harkatul Jihad al-Islami. Huji, it's known as Huji. They arrested these guys. The South Asia Terrorist Portal of the US, they also confirmed this investigation. They also added one Vikar Ahmad of Huji to be in association with these guys. All these details are still there, and one can go and find on the portals. There are reports from Times of India, India Today, published reports about the investigation, about these arrests, about these terror organizations. But immediately after, this was in 2007 May. But after Chidambaram becoming the Home Minister, there was a twist in the tale. Again, NIA, CBI, ATS, everyone started suspecting RSS. They produced again the same guy, Asim Anand, before the court, saying that he has confessed that RSS was behind this Makkah Masjid attack. And you see, Makkah Masjid attack, the bomb was a small bomb, I would say. Okay, and these were placed near Muslim communities to make it look like that some Hindu groups are behind it. Asim Anand was brought to picture, and the investigating agencies leaked the report, his statement, to media. And first it came in Tahalka, and then other friendly media organizations, they took it further. The whole idea behind leaking this statement was to build the narrative. Okay, later it was proved that his statement was taken under duress, he was tortured, and he was given a clean sheet by the court. But by the time it happened, the narrative was already built through these media leaks, especially through Tahalka and NDTV. They all were running this like a motor every day. The next blast was the Ajmer Dargah blast. Again, similarly, 3 people died. It was a small bomb, but the placement was near Ajmer Dargah to make it look like an attack on Muslims. 5 accused were arrested immediately by the ATS. Again, Asim Anand was blamed for this, accused for this. And one Bhavesh Patel was accused for this. and Sunil Joshi, who was murdered later. That time, I vividly remember ex-RAW officer RSN Singh, whom I used to follow those days very regularly because you could not trust any media outlets. He made a very clear statement on the TV that, as per their intel report, it's a clear political jihadi nexus, and it is perpetrated by the UPA government through NIA and ATS to frame Hindu outfits. And then we started reading about it in detail. Years later, it was proved in the court and through that this guy Bhavesh Patel was planted by the UPA government, and Sushil Kumar Shinde directed him to implicate Mohan Bhagwat. This was the level at which they were working. They were not even working through any agents or agencies. The ministers were directly involved. That was the level of their frustration, I would say, or the level of focus with which they were operating. In 2014, when the government changed, one by one, this case was brought to fast track, and in a year, almost 50 of witnesses they turned hostile. They all ran away. They turned hostile, and this case was finally put into the basket. Asim Anand was given a clean sheet and a bail. So you see, the Malegaon blast first, and then some Jhota Express blast, then the Ajmer Sharif, Ajmer Dargah, Makkah Masjid. They were, very strategically planted. Then came this another very popular case, which was proved as to be a direct conspiracy of the government, was again a blast in Malegaon in 2008, in which Sadhvi Pragya was implicated. So this blast happened in 2008, both in Malegaon and in Madosa. Madosa also, one guy died in the blast. It happened on the eve of Navratri. Same day, Ahmedabad police foiled another attack in Gujarat, where 17 bombs placed differently were defused. So it was a major plan. This September 2008 blast was, a plan to blast across India. There was a blast in Delhi, in which nobody died, but and few other bombs were diffused in Delhi. But Malegaon became popular because of the conspiracy which came into public. Immediately after the blast, PTI reported, and then other media outlets reported that police has arrested a Muslim man in connection of the bombing. But then one guy, Hemant Karkare, who was the Mumbai ATS chief, he was handed over the investigation, and immediately the saffron terror angle was brought in. If guys remember, Mr. Karkare died in the 2008 Mumbai attacks also. After Karkare taking up the case, Sadhvi Pragya Thakur was made accused, and the basis was the bike used. This bike belonged to Sadhvi Pragya Thakur, which she had sold in 1997, 11 years back. But since she used to wear a saffron chola, and she was self-proclaimed Sadhvi, so it heated up. Then the ATS brought a connection of Rashtriya Jagran Manch and Abhinav Bharat again. No basis was declared, no connection was made, but these names started coming in the media. Sadhi Pragya made a shocking statement through an affidavit against the atheist that she was physically and psychologically tortured. She was brutally beaten. She was, tortured using obscene languages in the interrogations, and everything came into public later. Once again, the same Colonel Purohit was again arrested in the case, and bringing the connection of Abhinav Bharat. Again, the same guy, Asim Anand's statements were used, and a link between Samjhauta and Malegaon was brought in. What is surprising is that these guys were in under arrest for 9 years. 9 years they were in the custody, but the ATS and NIA, they could not file even a charge sheet. They could not bring even one evidence of their connection with the blast. They were only accused and alleged. What happened next? After later, when the government changed, the court pursued the case on a regular basis, and ultimately both Asim Anand, Colonel Purohit, and Sadhvi Pragya, they're all out on bail. The case is still there until it is declared. Unless a verdict comes, the case is still is going on. But till date, there are no charge sheets against these guys. The question that came to my mind and should come to anybody's mind, that why would a government frame an army man? And who was this Colonel Purohit when he got a clean sheet from the army court of inquiry, but he still was put into custody for almost a decade? And I'll give a brief to my listeners about Colonel Purohit. Colonel Purohit was a guy who was doing the investigative, he was into the investigative role. He was the first person to bring to the notice of the intel about the Bardhaman model. He used to mingle with the terrorists. He used to prepare reports for the intelligence. It was his report that brought in the nexus that the Bangladeshis are crossing over and making a base in West Bengal. It was his report that brought Jamaatul Mujahideen of Bangladesh and Jamaat Islami's nexus to the intelligence. It was his report that Jamaatul Mujahideen was creating a base for creating an unrest in Bangladesh first, and then target the Indian establishment. He also decoded, he was the one who decoded this, the creation of Islamic necklace of Assam, Tripura, West Bengal connection. The guys who were investigating him, the NIA, that also came with us and agreed with his report that this Islamic necklace plan is going on through Bangladesh. But they were also investigating him. So, Colonel Purohit was a distinguished officer. He had a very fine service record. But poor guy was victimized for political reasons because he possessed some fine intelligence, because the intelligence report that he had was in his possession could embarrass top political quarters in those days of the ruling party. So he was clearly targeted because he knew too much. So that's the story of Colonel Purohit. But now, when we look back, we add and we ask that, okay, all these blasts happen, all these top agencies, whether it is CBI, NIA, or IB, all anti-terror squads of Maharashtra, they all were behind this investigation. But till today, who has been convicted? The answer is no one. So all this investigation did what? They allowed the perpetrators to run away, and it implicated people on falsehood. So naturally, if you're implicating people on falsehood, they will not get convicted. So the overall result is zero. No convictions, and the perpetrators being allowed to run away. Why would our agencies ignore US intelligence report? US intelligence report in several cases has accused LET and SIMI. What was the reason behind ignoring it? The reason was because they ridiculed any involvement of any Hindu organization. So their intelligence reports were, conveniently ignored. The manner in which NIA and CBI investigated this is definitely intriguing and unprecedented, and points out that the whole idea behind these investigations were fixing somebody to make or to perpetuate the narrative of saffron terror. So, in a nutshell, we can say that it was a Sonia Gandhi-led Congress party which was behind this through its top ministers, primarily P. Chidambaram, I would say, and through his investigating agencies to build this narrative. And the idea behind this narrative was to create communal wedge between the two communities. And only for this reason, only all their corruptions, all their financial malpractices, everything keep aside. But this particular conspiracy, I would say, for this, Congress of that era can never be forgiven. And that's it. That's my whole narrative, my study about it. I have written in detail. I have written about the Ishrat Jahan case separately. That was another conspiracy in which the terrorists were said that honest daughter of India. Or so this is what I have to say. If I would like you guys to ask me some questions, particular in any specific incidents or some other side of it, I would love to narrate it.
It was really a revealing talk which you have given. I have two small questions. One, you are saying that the case is still in the court against Colonel and other people, and no charge sheet has been filed for the last 7 years or 8 years or 10 years. Now, how that the court still allows this sort of thing to continue? Who is responsible for delaying justice to these people? Is there any procedure by which these people can say, you finish the case and let me go? Second, it is now in public domain that Congress people, starting from Chidambaram, Subban and company, have been involved in a lot of these underhand activities. But no action whatsoever has been taken against them so far, legally. And does it indicate a weakness in our system to really take on people who are working against national interests? These are the two questions.
Actually, you answered your question yourself that of the cases are going in the court, and I know, we all know about our judiciary or the functioning of it. Also, on part of the investigating agencies, I would say that the Congress is out of government, but not out of establishment. They are still very much there, and their hands are there, and they are still able to manage these cases to prolong it. And yeah, I mean, all these people, in my opinion, all these investigations should be put into the bin, and fresh investigation must start. Then only we can come to a conclusion. Then only that there can be a justice. But why the present government is not pursuing it or the way we want leaves me intrigued. But yeah, I'm on the same page as you are.
You said this government could open up a new set of investigations which would bring out the real truth behind these incidents. And they have not done so far. Of course, we do not know why it is not so. What can be done to persuade this government to take up this issue more seriously?
It's a very it's a question which requires few sessions, and I don't think I'm the right person to answer this. But yeah, if it becomes of public interest, then any government takes up the case. But the public has to ensure that this is of their interest, and their voting pattern and everything depends on the merit of these cases.
2004 से जो 2014 तक जो सरकार रही है, यूपीए की सरकार रही है, मेरी नजरों में वो सरकार, अगर हम स्वतंत्रता के बाद की बात करें तो सबसे ज्यादा हिंदू को टारगेट किया इन ऑल एस्पेक्ट, चाहे टेररिज्म हो चाहे धर्म हो। मैं तो यहां तक मानता हूं, मेरा व्यक्तिगत आकलन है, आप क्लियर करेंगे, मेरा पूरा पैनल हम लोग का क्लियर करेगा कि क्या वो मतलब मुगल शासन शुरू हुआ तब के बाद अगर सबसे ज्यादा कभी हिंदू धर्म को हर एंगल से टारगेट किया गया तो 2004 से 2014 तक। तो मतलब कि इवन नेहरू जी के टाइम में जितना हिंदुओं पर जो मतलब हिंदू धर्म को टारगेट किया गया सिस्टमेटिकली, उससे भी ज्यादा किया गया है 2004 से 14 तक। आप इस पर थोड़ा कि मैं कितना सही हूं, क्या है, आप थोड़ा बताइए, अपनी राय बताइए।
मैं आपकी राय से 100% सहमत हूँ, लेकिन अभी तक जो हम लोगों ने बात की है पूरे सेशन में, ये यही था कि वो उस समय का जो गवर्नमेंट था कांग्रेस का, जिसमें कि बाय डिफॉल्ट सोनिया गांधी वाज द लीडर, तो उन लोगों ने अपने पॉलिटिकल रीजंस के लिए ये नैरेटिव बिल्ड किया। टारगेट किया नहीं किया वो तो मैं नहीं बता सकता, लेकिन ये नैरेटिव जरूर बिल्ड किया कि हिंदू टेरर भी एक एंगल है, जो कि एक ऑक्सीमोरन है, लेकिन अपने लोगों को या किस पर्टिकुलर मुस्लिम वोट बैंक को अपीज करने के लिए, तो जो कि काफी एविडेंट है। तो मैं आपसे एग्री करता हूँ, इसमें फर्दर मैं कुछ कमेंट ऐड नहीं करना चाहता।
Also, what I feel is, as a layman hearing it, I think it was targeted at the RSS and also the BJP, so that they don't get votes in the future elections, so that even the Hindus turn against them.
On the hindsight, we know that it backfired.
Kudos to you for analyzing the case so successfully. This is expected from a chartered accountant. My good wishes to you. Now, my question is in two parts. One is that you said that perpetrators were not brought to book by whomsoever it may be. But in last 7 years, although Mr. Ramakrishnan did ask a part of this, which I wanted to ask, but in last 7 years, why we could not bring separate cases against the perpetrators? Number one. Number two, there is a provision in the Criminal Procedure Code, proviso to section 24(8) CRPC, which says that the court may permit the victim to engage an advocate of his choice to assist the prosecution, means public prosecutor. Now, even if the public prosecutor engaged by Congress Party or whomsoever you were telling in this talk. And I have no brief for that party, please. The court can permit the victim here means those who were affected. They could engage a counsel of their choice who has a right to be heard. So, if you have any power, please suggest that the private counsel should be engaged in these cases to assist the victims. So this was last part was suggestion. The first point was why the perpetrators have not been brought to books in last 7 years.
It's a difficult question because I don't hold any voice for any party. But yeah, my expectation was that from the present dispensation, that these cases will be pursued separately. Of course, all these cases were fast tracked, and that is why Colonel Purohit or Asim Anand, Sadhvi Pragya Thakur, they are all out on bail. But that was not enough. I have written very clearly, and I will repeat that in my opinion, that the entire investigation, the government should put it into a bin and start fresh investigation and start fresh cases in the court. Then only we can reach to a conclusion, or justice can be given. Now your question is why this government is not doing that. I have no answer, and that is my question as well.
Thanks a lot for that very systematic analysis of all these blasts. I used to think about these blasts, but they were not as clear as now you have put it. I have a comment, and then I think that is a question. So comment is, I've been listening to some of the questions which came earlier, and I think it's very clear that why the perpetrators are not brought to the book, because, as you rightly said, the Congress is out of the government, but is still very much present in the bureaucracy and the establishment. I mean, they have 70 years of their roots into the whole thing, and it's not easy to plug them out just like that. They have a huge fan following still, mostly because people got a lot of economic benefits from them. So that's a very clear answer. Why the government is not doing anything about this case? I think government has taken a stand not to interfere too much with the judiciary, at least where it's not necessary. And I think that's why they are not doing much about it. Now, my question to you is that after all this has happened, and it is very clear that I think this all happened because whatever plans were laid out for last 70 years, they were trying to put the final nail into the coffin of Hindus in this country. Of course, it just went haywire. That's a different story. But like what you talked about, Colonel Purohit, yes, the army person, and you said most likely he just knew too much and that's why he was targeted. But what about these other people? I mean, like Asim Anand, I mean, was he a big known person? Or Hemant Karkare, for example? I mean, or these were just the pawns on the chessboard?
I didn't know. I mean, we didn't know about Asim Anand or Pragya, anyone of them. Even Colonel Purohit, for that matter. We came about them only later when we started reading about the details of these cases. But definitely, Asim Anand used to wear saffron clothes. He was a Swami. Same was Sadhvi Pragya was a Sadhvi, and he used to wear Bhagwa clothes. So these were big target. So to make the cases look obvious that the Hindus are behind these terror conspiracies. That's my opinion. I may be wrong, but that I didn't know about these folks.
I agree with you, and that's why I was wondering that why these people, because they were not very so-called very popular people amongst Hindus or something like that. Yes, they used to wear saffron and all. So I was just wondering if there was something more than what meets the eye. So yeah, thank you. That was my question. Thanks.
I just want to give a answer to Rohit's question. Simanand was a very known figure who was promoting Sanatan and Ghar Wapsi in Dang area, and he was running a feud with Evangelist. So possibly he was fixed because of his association with Ghar Wapsi. And my question to Bhushanji, thanks for being for giving such an informative talk. See, such a thing can happen again. I don't think that this narrative cannot run 15, 20 years or 30 years from now. When things change, politics change, and there may be a party which comes with a backing of Islamists. The same narrative can be turned against Hindus, because as such we see a lot of Hindu phobia all around the world. So we have to have some institutional mechanisms in place to prevent such atrocity against Hindus or narrative against Hindus. What can we do to prevent such occurrence in future?
I totally agree with you. I believe after the emergence of social media, things become much more difficult to propagate such conspiracies. And the mechanism, there are many people who have now come to the fore. The Sangam Talk, there are other portals, other organizations, they are doing their job. So makes things much difficult, but I mean, that cannot be negated, that it cannot happen. Can always happen. But 2004 to 2014, rather I would say from 95 to 2004, when the Hindus were sleeping, and that is why that government came, and that is why this mass and the major financial malpractices happened. That was the time when this entire Hindu terror narrative was built, and which backfired. I think that it backfired, but it can always happen again. We have to remain alert, and that's all I can say.
There was some issue. Anyways, the question is like, as we said that the whole investigation should be scrapped, and we should, rather government or the judiciary or whomever the authorities should start re-investigating the thing. My simple question is, rather, I am just trying to understand, after like 14 to 20 years almost, is it possible to dig out all the evidences and the people who were witnesses and all, to produce all these people in front of judiciary and then run this case from scratch? And if that is not possible, or possible, I don't know, the studies by foreign investigative agencies, is it possible to bring all those studies to the table and get the justice to the table in from that perspective? Is it possible?
Look, if the government is willing, it can be, and you cannot underestimate the intelligence of our investigating agencies. If they want to, they are very well capable to investigate and bring out the facts on the table. Whether they will, I have a doubt. But if the government is willing to pursue it, and if the government wants to bring out the facts on the table, forget about 14 years, it can bring out facts from 140 years as well. They are well capable of that.
Shwetank-ji, namaste. Thank you so much for the session. My apologies, I joined a little late, so you probably must have discussed it. Now, my question, I'll start my question after a small comment. So when people say that, will it happen in the future? Are we not looking around us? Is it not happening? Just because it is not happening in the political arena doesn't mean it is not happening anywhere. It is happening on the streets. It is happening in the academia today. So you as a community are vilified all the time. And it has happened in the past. It will happen till the time we are alive. We have to understand this is not about Hindu versus Muslim or Hindu versus Christianity. This is between the people who have a view between, you choose either this or that versus a community that gives the freedom to choose what you want to choose. So if we think it is not there today, we are completely mistaken. The global conference just happened. I think it's not been even a week. What is that about? It is about this, right? When we say dismantling Hindutva, and do you think it would be correct on my part, or do you think I'm ignorant when I say that dismantling Hindutva is not about RSS and BJP? We need to get out of that. It is about dismantling you as a Hindu, you as a community who worships the Prakriti. It is not. Today it is happening in academia because now they have the freedom there. You will go and tackle it there. They will move on to the next platform. So do you think as a community we need to stop saying that the government is going to do that's A, government is not going to do that. People have to do. And B, do you think we also need to understand it is not BJP, it's not RSS. They cannot target you as a community, so they are using them as a shield. But at the end of the day, you are the one who's going to pay. When the riot happens on the street, it is the common person, it is the common Hindu who's going to die, not RSS and BJP. They could be from RSS and BJP, but they'll be killed for being a Hindu and not for being an RSS or BJP. So how do you think the society will wake up to understand it is not a threat of the past and it is not a threat of the present, it is a past, present, and future. So after all this rambling, how do you think I, as an adult, will educate my child to understand that you don't have to fear anyone, you don't have to hate anyone, but you need to understand that this battle will go on? And then how do we prepare our next generation? I have younger nieces and nephews, and I worry about them because I don't think this is going to change in the future. If you could answer that.
I cannot agree more, actually. I totally agree with you. It's not rambling. It is the inner you which is coming out. My take is the same, but from time immemorial, we are a community like this. We wake up only when we are cornered. So I think that is what Hinduism is in a nutshell. So it will go like this. People will get targeted. We'll wake up when time comes, and we'll keep on moving. Nothing to worry, but we have to be alerted. We have to remain alerted. There is no harm in saying that I'm a Hindu. I'm a proud Hindu. I mean, when people start feeling that, how can they say they are a Hindu? I mean, there is nothing wrong. I mean, people go for, send their kids to read the Quran. They send to see Granth Sahib. We also have to start. I mean, okay. I mean, before sending our daughter for a dance class, she also has to learn a few basics, at least Panchatantra, if not Ramayana. So that will bring, and I'm not very worried about it. Okay, as to, but yeah, we have to remain alerted. I mean, one Shwetang among 10 is enough to take care of. So, and there are many. I mean, there are plenty of people who are working for the cows, and there is a party. I don't believe in a party and religion and this, but there are many organizations, there are many temples, there are many societies. They are all doing their job. We need not be worried about it. The propagation will happen. Political conspiracies will carry on. We have to be remain alerted. That's all.
There is a Gujarat connection to this whole saffron terror thing. I mean, like the charge sheet filed by the Rajasthan ATS in Ajmer in 2007, it named two people who had links to Gujarat, Sadhvi Pragya and Asimanand. Sadhvi Pragya has her family based in Surat, while Asimanand was, as Dr. Rajiv just said, that he was targeting the Christian missionaries. So was there a kind of linkage to Narendra Modi seeing him as somebody as a Gujarat development model because there was constant? So was this somehow linked to getting a Gujarat And because Asima Nand and all are not known nationally, so it's easy to target not a Ramdev, but a Asima Nand, and also he has a connection to Gujarat. So how come these two people from Gujarat?
I actually won't be able to make a connection like that. But I'm pretty confident, and we know for the fact that the Congress identified Narendra Modi way before BJP identified him, that he is going to be a potential threat. So after 2002, when he was targeted like crazy, we all know that he was targeted for almost 10 years, 11 years, from 2002 to till 2013. In fact, in the Ishrat Jahan case, the terrorists were there to assassinate him because he was becoming such a threat. Whether that was connected through Asima Anand or not, I would not make any comment because I'm actually not aware about that.
So more than question, and I just wanted to kind of make a comment on what Jashoda ji said, which was on a lighter note, maybe there should be something called a Hindu terror. Because I think it is very important for others to have, start getting a little bit terrified of us. I think we need to turn the tables. But more seriously, I think, in my opinion, what is happening is, as Jashoda ji said, and we all agree that this thing will continue. They will keep coming up with their own versions of, the Khaljis and the Taimurs and all of that. And we have to keep producing our Hamir Singhs and Shivajis and Lakshmi Bai and Subhash Chandra Bose. I think the problem today is we are not seeing these kind of people coming up. But we have to very proactively ensure that this keeps happening. So that's all what I have to say. I have no question.
I agree, but I accept the term called people need to be terrified. We can live without that, and we can do well.
I'm thankful to you, Shwetang-ji, for writing that article, which inspired this talk. And we look forward to many such people like you who, contribute on the open internet and, enlighten us via your writings and your research. I mean, you're a chartered accountant, but your interest in this is something which I think our ancient Gurukul system also taught us, that we have to have interest in all subjects, not just stick to one. So you're also, and I request all our esteemed audience here also, we have mediums like Creately, like medium.com, MyInd, and a lot of other such websites that wants you to write about something that you have researched. These are open websites. You can make your username, password, and start writing anything. I think it contributes majorly to a lot of knowledge, because all of us here, I think somehow we have some research in our minds that we would like to put across to the society. So Shwetang ji has taken the call. Please, all of you also do that. Yeah.
My thanks to Sangam Talks, to you especially, to think that I can talk about it. And many thanks to the audience as well to spare their time. I hope I contributed a little. I would suggest to people who are interested in this topic to read RVS Mani's book called Hindu Terror, which is far more detailing than the article. Although I wrote the article way before the book came, but still, I mean, that I would suggest. And many thanks. Pleasure was all mine.